Welcome to the Marc Steiner Show here on The Real News. I'm Marc Steiner. It's wonderful to have you all with us. My guest this hour is Congressman Jamie Raskin, who represents Maryland's 8th District. He's been in Congress for 4 terms now. He was chosen by the Democratic caucus to be the ranking member of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, and has been a fighter for justice his whole life. And before he was a congressman, he was a 3-term state senator. And I won't tell you how old he was when I first met him. Jamie, good to see you.
It's great. It's great to be with you, Mark. It really is.
So, and I wish this was a way we were talking about something more upbeat. But given the election that we've just gone through, just on a personal note, I mean, how shocked and taken aback were you that Trump won and it was such a loss?
Well, I've been to 27 states in the campaign. And I suppose it gives you a little bit of a distorted view because I was appearing at Democratic Party county dinners and state dinners and canvass kickoffs, rallies, and so on. And I saw such exuberance and such energy and such determination and fight that, you know, I was taken aback by what happened. And you know, it's obviously going to take us a while to sort through everything to figure out exactly why it happened. But obviously, the country is deeply divided, and you know, we beat them by, I guess, 7 million votes in 2020, and here it looks like we'll lose by a few million votes, and in the Electoral College. But, you know, we have to figure out a way to get through all of the bad vibes and the deadlock in the country. And, you know, I'm committed to do that. I was thinking about a favorite letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to a friend of his named John Taylor during the time of the Alien Sedition Acts. And he said, a little patience in the reign of witches will pass over, their spells dissolve, and the people recovering their true sight restore the government to its true principles. And we must have patience because when the game runs against us sometimes, because this is a game where principles are at stake. And that's kind of the way I feel, you know, like, the human inclination is to feel intense frustration and anguish about a loss like this, and we got to analyze it. But you know, in the sweep of history, like, this too shall pass, and we just got to keep moving forward.
Before I come back to this, come to questions about the deadlock and what the future might bring, immediately we are faced with an incoming government that will have J.D. Vance, RFK Jr., Vivek Ramaswamy in critical leadership roles. People are on the edge, people who have an extremely conservative and right-wing kind of bent. So, I mean, and because you know, for all my time covering Donald Trump and the right in this country, which I've done for years, Donald Trump is like the madman figurehead, but it's these people around him that are actually the ones who are going to begin to create the policies to change the nature of the country.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of Batman villains. You know, it's like the Joker and the Riddler and the Penguin, and they all have their, you know, particular specialties they work on. You know, Stephen Miller is all about immigrant bashing and, you know, doing a roundup of undocumented people and deporting them from the country. You know, J.D. Vance, I don't know, he's a chameleon figure, but it's some kind of culture war I think he's fighting. You know, others are in it for the plunder and the grift of the whole thing. But, you know, there's not much of a program for the common good, and that's what we're all about. We've got to continue to uphold the public interest and try to defend everything that, you know, our grandparents and our parents have built in America, like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. You know, we are going to be the real conservatives here, trying to conserve the legacy of, you know, more than a half century of social struggle in the country.
So, the election itself, I'm really curious. You've been through this a long time. You've been in politics a long time. You've been state senator, U.S. congressman. Why do you think the Democrats fell apart?
Well, I don't know that the Democrats fell apart. I mean, that's not quite the way I see it.
Okay, how do you see it?
I feel like it was not enough to be defending freedom, like women's freedom, and it was not enough to be defending democracy, the constitutional system. The showdown struggle is going to be between progressive economic populism and right-wing authoritarian populism. And on that front, we obviously didn't show up with a program that could appeal to a lot of working class guys who didn't quite see what was in it for them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, I've seen some stuff that Bernie Sanders has been saying, and Bernie, to his credit, was really out there in the campaign and campaigning. But, he has, since the campaign, been saying that, there was not a strong progressive working class program, and we did not campaign on increasing the minimum wage and the right to organize and the right to strike and so on. I don't think that's any kind of, magical cure to what ails us. But I do think that is the entree into lots of young men who may have become like the pivot, the lever in the end of the campaign for the Republicans. And they were running a very macho-oriented campaign to turn out the young male vote.
Which they did.
And they succeeded in doing that, yeah.
So I'm curious, you've been at this a while, and on the progressive end of the spectrum inside the Democratic Party. And what is it going to take to kind of bring that party around? As I was watching all the ads and listening to the radio ads around the country and watching and how it was all presented, A, it didn't feel like there was a lot of fight inside those ads, and B, they didn't at all begin to describe what you're talking about this moment, which is appealing to the working class of America, appealing to a kind of racial unity, to really being out there as the fighters for a more just economic world in our country. That in some ways was flagrantly missing.
Well, I mean, here's the big problem. And if, it's there's nothing more tempting after an election than to criticize, what other people did. And I,
yeah,
and like, these are my people. I wasn't running the campaign. I was a foot soldier out there. But, if I could go back and change one thing, it would be this. I mean, we, as The Economist magazine put it, our economy right now is the envy of the world. I mean, the lowest inflation rate of the Western industrialized countries. We've had, 50 straight months of under 4% unemployment. The Biden was handed a debacle by Donald Trump when he came in, and the Biden-Harris administration did a great job. Now, here's the problem. The inflation that we had coming out of COVID with the supply chain breakdowns, and also with the multi-trillion-dollar aid packages that both Democrats and Republicans voted for, there was an inflation. And, I think that Biden did a good job and the Fed did a good job of managing the inflation, right? But people still, in an existential way, felt the inflation. And that was an important part of what was going on out there. Here's the way I see what the response was by our forces and what it should have been. The response was, well, we can't tell people how great the economy is because they don't feel it. And so it looks like we're out of touch if we do that. And therefore, we just have to say, yes, we have to continue to wrestle inflation to the ground and so on. That's not what the Republicans would have done in the exact situation. What they would have done is partly what we should have done. We should have taken credit for the fact that the economy is roaring and that we have a great economy. But then we should have gone to the point you and I were just discussing a moment ago to say, but there's way too much inequality in the society, and the benefits and the gains of this roaring economy are overwhelmingly going to the billionaires. And that's not right. And so we need to increase the minimum wage. We need to make sure that unions can collectively bargain. We've got to strengthen labor laws. We need to make an investment, as Kamala was saying, in young people and their ability to purchase a house the first time and so on. But in other words, don't run away from our success. And that was the part that was bumming me out about that. People were saying, well, we don't want to be celebrating or gloating about an economy that hasn't filtered through to so many people. And I think the answer to that is we've done a great job on macroeconomics, but the Republicans have been fighting us every step along the way in terms of making sure that we've got greater economic equality in the country. So instead, we get the Republicans blaming us for the failures of their own policies and for all the inequality that they insist upon, and us not being able to take credit for the huge economic achievements that were actually made.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. That's what I meant. I mean, strategic, for a moment, just speaking about that strategically, that was, it was, I kept looking at these commercials going, and looking at the literature coming out. Where's the fight? Why aren't you saying the things you just said?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and organizing on the ground. I mean,
and look, I'll tell you what my rhetoric was out there about democracy, because that was obviously a critical component of the campaign. And in fact, it was the lead issue invoked by voters at the polls when they asked, what is your number one issue? Democracy was the lead issue, and it was invoked by huge numbers of Democrats, but even some people on the Trump side, because Trump, in his inimitable way, just mimicked us to try to, pull the rug out from under what we were saying. But here's the thing about democracy, okay? Democracy is not just a static collection of institutions and practices. It's partly that. It is the right to vote, and it is representative institutions and so on. But democracy is always an unfinished project. It's something that's in motion, right? And Tocqueville understood this. In Democracy in America, he said that democracy is either growing and expanding, or it's contracting and subsiding. And we've been in this terrible contractionary mode with all the voter suppression tactics and the gerrymandering of our congressional districts and right-wing judicial activism. So on the democracy point, I think we needed to say we are going to defend everybody's right to vote. We are going to defend our political institutions, but we are also going to keep the project of democracy moving forward, right? The whole thing about the anti-Puerto Rican racist joke, that would have been the perfect moment to say, now is the time to admit Puerto Rico is a state into the union.
Yep.
We got 3.5 million disenfranchised Americans. We got 713,000 tax-paying draftable Americans in Washington, D.C., the only residents of a national capital on earth who are not represented in their own legislature. It's time for D.C. statehood. That's a genuine, bona fide political grievance. And they didn't come down in the Capitol and beat the hell out of our police officers and put people in the hospital and drive the members of the House and Senate out of their chambers. They petitioned for statehood, and we should admit them. So the pro-democracy message has got to be forward-looking as well as defensive in nature.
So, in the little time we have left here, talk about your thoughts and analysis about what do you think is going to happen this moment. You have J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, RFK Jr., all of them bright men, but really right-wing, Vivek Ramaswamy. So what do you think is going to happen in the next 6 months to a year? You have Donald Trump and these really far-right people managing the government, taking over, and I'm just curious how you see, A, the fight going on against that, and B, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, Project 2025 lays out, I think, their big wish program, even though Trump repeatedly tried to disavow it and distance himself from it. If they could do everything, they would do all of that. I mean, I'm concerned about the proposal of sacking 50,000 federal workers and replacing them with Trump sycophants. A lot of those people live in Maryland and work for the Department of Energy and NASA and NOAA and NIH. And, they want to gut the government functions they don't agree with. They want to abolish the Department of Education and Head Start. So that's going to be one front in their war. I think if Stephen Miller has his way, they'll start the way they did last time, which is with a war on immigrants, because they think that, scapegoat politics is the most successful form of right-wing authoritarian politics. So they will try their roundups and their deportations to create a climate of, fear and intimidation in the society. And, if R.F. Kennedy Jr. goes in there, and Trump said he would let him run wild when it comes to health and food,
right?
Drugs, it could be a war on fluoride in the water. And who knows where he takes it. So we're going to have to defend science and reason along with democracy and the rule of law.
So I'm curious how you think we fight that and how that is fought. The roots of the part of the Democratic Party, part of the roots of the party is unions and union organizing, is the civil rights movement, is people fighting for civil liberties, is people trying to debunk the 1950s myth about fluoride in the water.
Yeah.
So how do you organize the battle to save the country?
Well, look, we've been through this before. We are veterans and battle-hardened champions of the Constitution and Enlightenment and the democracy. And, I think our main job is we're going to have to be recruiting whole new generations of young people to get in the fight and to be ready to participate in it. Obviously, this is going to be like a long-term struggle against these people. The good news is that, if you look at the unfolding of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, you look at the unfolding of social legislation like Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, the National Labor Relations Act, the Fair Labor Standards Act, there's a logic to all of it. There's a reason to it. They're coming in with a program which is a collection of conspiracy theory-driven, ideological pet agendas, like the Bobby Kennedy, like the anti-vaccine thing, or deporting immigrants, or build the wall. Like it's a chaotic agenda. There's no real reason to it, and each one of those things is so extreme and so outlandish. It could take all of the energy of their forces to try to get behind to do it, but they're going to be trying to do all of them, and there's going to be a succession struggle taking place. All of these people, want to be the next whatever, GOP nominee, running mate. They're already talking about Donald Trump like he's yesterday's news. And they're all rivals to take over the MAGA movement. And, one thing that we've seen in the information we've gotten about how it operated before was that it was totally divisive and internecine warfare kind of stuff, because they're not unified around a program for the common good. It's all just a collection of people who have their own ambitions and agendas, whether it's to make money off of the government, to plunder the government, to change the system of politics in America, to move away from democracy. There's a lot of different forces contending over there, and we're able to stand strong for the American democratic experiment and for American freedom, which a lot of them have abandoned. So, we've been through it, and we are ready to organize to stop them. My campaign program, Mark, as you know, is the Democracy Summer Project. I spend no money on pollsters, polling, TV, radio, direct mail, any of that stuff. It all goes into a school for young people. And the Democracy Summer Project, which started here in Maryland, is now nationwide. We were in 46 states in the 2020 election. We had more than 1,500 young people spend the summer with us. organizing, studying the history of social movements and change in America, and then working on today's problems like gerrymandering, like voter suppression, and then being involved in getting out the vote, canvassing, digital organizing, and so on. And I think that's where the action is politically.
So in the midst of what we face at the moment, you seem to come out a very positive note. You think, but it seems to me what it takes is what I said a moment ago, organizing. People going out and building some kind of force to say we are here and not going to let this happen.
Right. And, we are not without resources. We have tremendous resources intellectually, politically, socially, organizationally across the country. We have tens of millions of people. Nearly half of the people in the country voted with us, and we've just got to expand that coalition. But we really have to invest in new generations of organizers and leaders.
Well, Jamie Raskin, I know you have to run, and I appreciate this conversation. And in a couple of weeks, we'll rejoin. Congressman Jamie Raskin, thanks for your work. Thanks for being here today, and good luck to us all.
Thank you so much, Hank. Mark, thank you. And I appreciate so much everything you do. Hang tough.
You too. Once again, I want to thank Congressman Jamie Raskin for taking time out of his day to join us here at The Real News. And thanks to David Hebden for running the program today, audio editor Alina Nellick for all of her magic in audio producing, Rosette Sawali for producing The Marc Steiner Show, and the tireless Keller Rivara for making it all work behind the scenes. And everyone here at The Real News for making this show possible. Please, let me know what you thought about what you heard today, what you'd like us to cover. Just write to me at mss@therealnews.com, and I'll get right back to you. Once again, thank you to Congressman Jamie Raskin for being our guest today. So for the crew here at The Real News, I'm Marc Steiner. Stay involved, keep listening, and take care.
Thank you so much for watching The Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work. So please, tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to The Real News Network. Solidarity forever.